Thank you for listening to the Speaking Out on Sex Abuse podcast with hosts Clara and Jimmy Hinton. If you're new to the podcast, please subscribe and share so you never miss an episode. Android users can find us and subscribe on your Play Music app. Apple users can find us and subscribe on Apple Podcasts. You can find us on Stitcher. You can follow us on Spreaker. And you can find the podcast on jimmyhinton.org and findingahealingplace.com. Please rate our show, subscribe, and share so that we can spread the word. Let's get into the show. Welcome to the Speaking Out on Sex Abuse podcast with host Jimmy Hinton.
And Jimmy's mom, Clara.
And a special guest today, we have Joe Scorsone of the band Flintface. Joe, say welcome.
Hey, everybody. How are you?
Say hello. I should say welcome. You say hello.
Welcome. Did we do it right? Is that correct?
There you go. You got it. Nailed it.
Okay.
So we are continuing our series on abuse in schools, and we wanted to hit a really important topic, and that is the suicide rate among our young people. If you look at the statistics, the suicide rate is absolutely astounding. And we are interviewing Joe today because Flintface is on tour right now for the Take Back Your Voice tour. And Joe is out west right now. He is from Pennsylvania, not far from where Clara and I reside. And so, yeah, it's nice to have a fellow Pennsylvanian. And Joe and I met, a few years ago at an event that we were both at in Pennsylvania. And I just, we struck a friendship, and I just have a profound respect for Joe and for Flintface and for the music they produce and the message that he has. And Joe is just a very talented musician, a talented carpenter, a woodworker, just kind of a jack of all trades. So, Joe, again, thanks for being with us. This is so exciting.
Yeah, I'm definitely honored. I love what you guys do, and it's cool to actually be a part of it. This is, you guys are breaking ground all over the place, because really, it is such a hard subject to talk about, and let alone face head on weekly. I don't know how often the podcast comes out, but often enough weekly, that it's admirable. It's really intense. It's a lot to face every week, but I'm proud of you guys.
Yeah, thank you. Well, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your backstory, and why you started the band Flintface, and why you're really focusing on suicide prevention right now.
Absolutely. Well, I mean, my background is I was a preacher's kid in Philadelphia, North Philly, West Philly, and then North Philly. So it was an inner city church. It was always very poor and really just focused on serving people. It was never we were never going to, it wasn't going to be one of those mega churches or anything. It was just always a service thing where we were feeding people or dealing with abuse and domestic issues. And as I got older, we moved to the Poconos, and I started a church in the barn that we had there called Local Blood Work. It was Ephesians 2:13. It was like when metal was really popular, so it was cool to mention blood. So,
absolutely.
Yeah. So metal was really pop then. So it was called Local Blood Work because Ephesians 2:13. Those of you who are far come back under the blood. And the church band had really good musicians in it. We would actually book local bars and do some like safe covers, some Journeys, some Kansas, and then we would throw in some of our worship songs and invite people to the church. So slowly the barn started filling up with, just non-Christians, drug addicts, bouncers, bartenders, you name it. And it was amazing, but it was cold and there was no heat. And it was a 150-year-old barn, and then we were in the mountains. So eventually we moved it into my little apartment, and then it was about 70-something people at one point, and then my pipes froze and flooded the apartment. So the church disbanded. There was nowhere to meet anymore. We were out of options. So I was living in a hotel for about 3 months while the whole house was destroyed. So while I was getting fixed, and while I was in the hotel, I said, I don't want to lose momentum. And, we really found a good thing with people that are unchurched, if you will. And so I said, well, let's just take it on the road. So I said, the only way I can imagine is just start the band. That way we can go to their house, if you will, And Flintface became that vehicle to go and perform and minister. And really, it was at the beginning of social media, really MySpace. And so we were able to communicate with people after. And on the road, we started, hearing situations where fans were taking taking a ton of pills in a parking lot. One scenario was they took a bunch of pills and they had messaged us and said they did. And so we reached out to the cops and, said, hey, there's this kid in this parking lot who just messaged us. And then we had a fan kill themselves in New York, and other fans reached out to us and said they're really not talking about it at the school. They feel like it's going to incur more suicides. So we said, well, we'll talk about it. And in talking about it, we had a flood of people that were just waiting to tell their story and get this off their chest. Because, in the 90s, it was get over it. Early 2000s, it was still kind of get over it. Yeah. And then, we became a little more progressive as we started talking. And so at that point, a lot of people were trying to, not, I guess, trying to get over it. I don't know what they were just not allowed to speak. There was no forum, I guess. And in doing suicide awareness shows, I kind of came out and started sharing my story that, when I was a kid, I was, sexually abused, and I had struggled with suicide as a teenager. And it really became a therapy for me to tell my story. And slowly over the years, the show has evolved to Take Back Your Voice. And, when we play schools, when we're not playing like a regular music show, it's, Take Back Your Voice is really kind of touching on a broader spectrum, because not everybody is struggling with this or that or this, but they do have something they want to get off their chest. And also, when you deal with subjects that we talk about, it's easy to overlook people. We almost become insensitive, where we're like, oh, come on, your problem isn't that bad. If someone's just like, I'm struggling because of, I don't know, it's easy to discriminate if you see someone who hasn't been through these things, who has money, who is not in this situation. It's easy to say, well, that they're not the ones that need us that much. They're okay. This other group over here needs us. But the reality is that we're finding that even suicide doesn't discriminate against any age, income level, gender. I mean, there are statistics that change, but we realize that to just focus on the obvious troubled people, if you will, I don't know how to say it, we were leaving out a whole lot of people that seem fine on the surface, or maybe, what do they say, that problems are, I can't think of the word, but it's like, it's almost scalable, like if I see a rich person, I say, well, they don't have problems because I'm poor. And then if I see, but they would say, but their problems are real to them, whatever they're dealing with. I don't know why I keep using rich and poor, because I'm lazy. I don't have any other examples. But do you know what I'm saying? Like, it's
exactly.
easy to look at somebody. Yeah, everybody's problem is scalable. So something to me, if I say, man, I'm having a hard time paying these bills, or I've been struggling with this anxiety, then there's a kid somewhere in Africa saying, man, I'm really struggling to find food to eat this week. But my problems are still real to me, and they're real to them. And I guess if you held them side by side, you could say one is greater than the other, but to each of us, it's real. And so we didn't want to leave people out, because even though I might look at their problem and say, you know what, this kid over here is worse than you, that's really not the right way to approach it. We wanted to give people the opportunity to vent wherever they are and find help with whatever they need help with. We were discriminating.
Yeah.
we were.
I like No Child Left Behind.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, Barbara. Is it Barbara Bush? I don't remember which one.
Yeah, I think so. Said that? Yeah, and that
was that Michelle Obama.
No,
I don't know.
No, it was Bush. That was the Bush era that they started the No Child Left Behind. Yep. So
all right, we're back.
Yeah, I know. So I think what's really incredible about this, you and I talk about this a lot, just that you are rolling your sleeves up, going out there and doing it. And I think a lot of people step back, and I've been guilty of doing this too, where you step back and you see these really cool videos that Flintface does. Like your videos are killer, man, on YouTube. Seriously. Like,
Thanks.
Yeah, they're really good. The music is good. The videos are good. And
thank you.
you know, you step back and you're like, man, this is like an incredibly talented musician. And you know, the just the art of putting a video together and making it come together the way it does. You know, you almost step back and you're like, man, he is really living the life. Joe is, man, he's just, you know, he's set, he's out there, he's got his crowd. And then, you know, you get to know people and you realize, like, no, there's no magic in this. It's just you going out there. And well, I say you. I should say you and Beth.
Mm-hmm.
It's your family, you know, and you're out there. And how many schools are you doing on this tour?
This particular tour started September last year and ends in June this year. So it's almost 300 schools or more.
Wow.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Across the country. So yeah, I would say this is definitely the most significant. Scalably, this is the most significant thing we've ever done as far as volume.
And you've probably faced the most challenges on this tour too. So I got to tell you, I have to have you share the story just because I used to drive trucks, so I love big heavy equipment, and you guys were given an RV, and I'll just let you take it from here and tell that story. Just so people get to know you and hear about some of the challenges that you faced on this tour.
We I had a wood shop that I had started about 5 years ago to support the music, because we're independent artists and music is just not what it used to be. Like, just for the audience's information, when you stream our songs, we make 0.004 cents a stream.
Wow.
So I don't think that's not even a peso. I don't even know what that is. But so obviously the music industry's changed. So you got to make birdhouses or whatever to support it, unless you're part of a party that I've not been invited to. So we had a wood shop. It grew massively, and we were like, all right, this is not what God called us to do. This was just to support the music, and it's kind of taken over it. So earlier last year, we decided to shut it down. It was, at least for now, we just said, this is not what God wanted us to do, and we need to get back to the music. We had no plan. We decided not to make a plan for the first time. We were like, all right, God, if this is going to be you, this is going to be a complete faith thing. And we just had our daughter in February last year. So we were like, oh man, like now it's getting real. We have 2 children now, and financially, and is this a really good idea to shut down a company? We just finally made profit in the 5th year. And, but either God is God or he isn't. So we shut it down. And there's moments, there's moments where you feel that and don't feel that. This was a moment we felt that. And 2 weeks later, I literally went to clean up construction sites to pay our bills. Like that's, I didn't have a plan. That's what I did. A friend of mine just hired me to clean trash. And that's what I did. And 2 weeks later, a tour company that we had been talking to said, hey, yeah, we like you. We'll sign you for this tour. And they signed us, and we had no idea what that meant. We have a house we were renting and bills like everyone else. And we had no idea how to do it as a family, because, who has an RV or a bus laying around? And we just said, okay, God, this is you. We're going to keep walking in faith. And a couple weeks later, a neighbor texted me and said, hey, you need an RV? I said, yeah. And he just literally, he said, my friend's dad died and gave him this RV and he doesn't want it. And so we went and looked at it, and even the $300 I needed to transfer the title, it was a gift, but I still needed money. And a friend just called me that week. He's like, hey man, I just want to bless you. I'm sending you $300. I was like, hey, all right.
Wow.
This is, so, I mean, it was that fluid, and some moments in our Christian faith are just like that. They're just fluid. And other times it's to try our faith. So someone gave us this RV, and we fixed it up. And I spent all summer doing construction and working on that. So like 10 hours a day, and then work on it till 1 a.m, get up at 4. All summer, just really poured our hearts into this thing. Got it safe for our babies and our family. We never intended to be separated or allow music to create that lifestyle in our home, that musician lifestyle. So we were determined. We left for tour in September, and literally 2-3 days into the tour, we had a $700-something repair. We broke down, completely stranded.
Wow.
And that became the pattern. So every other week it was like a $700 to $1,000-something repair. As beautiful as everything was, and even though we had people check it over, there was always something going on. It was an old vehicle, 98. So it was always something small, but it was leaving us stranded constantly. And there's crazy stories I won't go into because it'll just take up too much time, but that's all in our vlogs. But so anyway, we, around Thanksgiving, we finally broke down so badly in Indiana. We were just incapacitated. We just finished playing at school. We got about 30 feet away and we're stranded there in front of their school for 12 hours and with babies and couldn't get food. We couldn't be towed because the brakes were locked. We just didn't have an option. And people in the community just started coming around and helped us out. And it was a miracle. And even one of the former guys from Shark Tank offered to help us out, but he never actually helped us out. But it looked good on Twitter.
We're going to make sure he gets this podcast. He's going to get a copy of this podcast.
I wouldn't. I'm not going to say you should do that. But I'm not going to say you shouldn't do that. It was kind of a bummer. It was a real disappointment because we had thought like our fans went nuts when they found out how bad, because they had watched us get stranded so many times, and that this one was like the last straw right before Thanksgiving. So they were tweeting Ellen, Oprah, and this person did respond, and they own the largest RV dealer in America. I will say that, but they messaged us and they were like, "What can we do? Where are you? You know, can you get to one of our locations?" And we said yes, and then they didn't answer back. So anyway. We crawled back to Pennsylvania. We couldn't put it in park, and it kept stalling, but we somehow got back to PA. It was about a 14-hour drive. And then I just threw everything in my car, and I jumped in my car, and I just drove straight back to Wisconsin to continue the tour. It was like a 2-day drive, and that was that. And then I finished up that and came home for the holidays. Now I'm back on the road for 4.5 months till June by myself without my family. And that is really hard. I don't like that at all.
Yeah.
So, but anyway.
Well,
that's the RV story, I think, if you asked.
Yeah, I did ask because I think it's so relevant to what you're doing, because there's not this glamorous story that, you know, Flintface is going out there and changing the world, and, you know, you're rocking this tour, and, you know, everything's going well. It's like there is just problem on top of problem on top of problem. And you just keep dusting yourself off, getting back up and putting your faith in God. And you're doing it because you care. Like, clearly you're not in this for the money. That's pretty clear.
And 20 years later, no. I was homeless when my wife met me, so definitely not. Yeah, that's true. But anyway.
So, you know, well, I think what you're doing is so important and it's so powerful. And I watched some of your videos online where you're just showing what's going on the tour. I think they're like some promo videos that are on YouTube for the Take Back Your Voice tour. And man, your ability to talk to people and communicate with little humans and to talk about such an important topic that's plaguing so many kids is just incredible. And anyway, all the respect to you. And maybe share a story or two if you're able to.
Sure.
About what you're seeing happening out here in these schools. Because, man, you're literally singing to and talking to thousands and thousands of kids.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost 5,000 kids a week at least.
Wow.
I think I would say one or two quick stories that stand out to me is one girl, I won't say where, a few weeks ago, she came up to me after the show. Very stoic. You know, sometimes at that age, it's like it's either really emotional and like a little bit of drama involved, and you never poo-poo anybody's feelings because, you know, it could be passive, but it still could be real.
Sure.
You don't know. You don't want to assume. But she was very stoic, and she just started. Tears were just coming out of her eyes. She wasn't crying like overtly, and she just said, you know, I've been hearing voices, and they're telling me that I don't deserve to live. I don't deserve to be here anymore. Like, just straight up said that. And they tell me to do things to myself. And she showed me her arms, and they had some cuts on them. And she says, I just don't know what to do. And she said, you know, and we started talking a little bit. I try to make sure there's a teacher or principal like within earshot whenever kids come up to me like that. But we started talking, and she shared with me at one point that she is going to eat her lunch in the library. And I was like, why do you do that? And she's like, I just don't, you know, I don't feel like I deserve to sit with the other kids. I don't feel like I fit in. And And after we talked and all, I talked to the principal. She goes, "Oh yeah, that's common. You know, kids eat in the bathroom stalls. They go in and they put their feet up on the toilet so people can't see anybody's in there, and they isolate themselves." And you know, when I hear stories like that, I think, and you're only there for 45 minutes, an hour in front of them. I think my goal at first was to make the tour company happy and make sure the schools were happy and the principals were happy and make sure, you know, just because you're working still, you're employed, you know, to do a good job. But then after a while, after the RV broke down, you just really, it's good when you lose. There's a lyric in my one song, Hope. It says, the beautiful thing about losing it all is there's nothing left to lose at all. And it's like, once you've hit the bottom, you kind of stop caring about the superficial things and you really only care. It's like what's left at the bottom of the pot when it boils off.
Which is exactly what those kids need. I mean, it's exactly where they are.
Yeah. And so I get to the point now where now I really, when I'm playing, even if it's like 600, 1,000 kids at a time, you can identify the kids who are targeting in and what you're saying. And you really want to and now when I play a show, I just focus on not calling out kids, but being mindful of what I say to make sure that I'm saying it to the kids that I know are listening to or need to hear what I'm saying right then and there, instead of talking to the entire crowd, even though on the outside I am, and they see that, but I know that there are certain kids zeroing in on what I'm saying, and I make sure I say everything I need to say to them, so that if I can't fix their problems, obviously, while I'm there for an hour, my goal is to make sure that I push them just far enough to know that they are valuable enough to at least say help. You know, and if I can get that kid to say help to an adult, to somebody in that school that cares, or a pastor, or somebody in their life that they trust, you know, then that's the goal. And that's kind of been my mindset since I'm, 2 to 4 schools a day. And, you know, you're seeing so many people so fast. It's like, how can I be the most effective? And I think the most effective thing to do is to at least push step one. If I can get step one happening before I leave, then I think that's about all anyone can do. And then the online aspect, you mentioned the videos, and like, I'm 41, man. The last thing I want to do is anything social media related. Like, kids ask me if I'm on TikTok, and I'm like, no, it's creepy. Don't talk to any 40-year-olds on TikTok.
Right.
It's weird. We shouldn't be on there, and I won't be on there. Yes. But we do other, we're on enough social platforms and that's why we started the podcast and all, is we want them to, we know that that's their world. So when we leave that school, we know that they can immediately access us and immediately continue to talk. And sometimes kids do say stuff that we will reach out to the school immediately and be like, hey, this kid just said this, or this kid said that. And then they reach out to that kid, and the kids don't get angry at us for that. I was always worried that they will, like we're snitching on them or something, or breaking trust. But the reality is that, one, we're obligated to, and two, they're saying it to me because they want someone to respond. They want someone to help them. So I don't try to help them. I'm a musician, not a counselor, not a doctor. We don't continue those conversations, because they're kids. And again, I'm 40. It's weird. But we do get them in touch with the school, or we do get in touch with the school right away when we see something, concerning. But
sure. Yeah,
that's it's down to a method now. Now the goal is just get that kid to say help before I leave, and then keep plugging forward. And I don't know what's going to happen. I come home in June, and Lord willing, like you mentioned about finances, it's like, how do you keep going? So, we started the podcast, we started Patreon, we started and we're talking to the tour company, hopefully, if they're willing, to book us one night a week or 1 week a month in different cities around the country that we've been. And then on the Friday night after that week of schools, host a open forum for the community to have that conversation with everyone and work on the solutions for that community and get people engaged and involved. And I'm working on a children's book, like a pre-teenage book, like kind of silly humor and just different things like that to, continue the conversation afterward. And we'll see whatever God wants, I'm here.
Yeah. It's really cool, man. That was really cool.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, we'll push the podcast too, because you just started the podcast. What? Like
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago. So I got to tell
you.
2 up. Joe, I was like, I think I wrote something about this on the one that on one of the first ones that you did, but I was like, I don't think that I've ever had my emotions swing from where I'm like laughing because you're a goofball and you're like in the hotel room and I'm like, I can relate to that when I was a truck driver and was lonely and separated from my family. Like you just do things to entertain yourself. And so the difference is you're on camera doing it. And I'm like, this is hilarious. And then like 5 minutes into it, I'm crying because you just like start talking about this real stuff. And I'm like, I don't think I've ever had my emotions swing so quickly. And man, you just have a gift. You have a gift of really being real with people and connecting. And you know, it's far more than the awesome music that you produce. But I'm so excited that you're doing a podcast now. I'm super pumped about that.
If we could just get the technology is attacking us, man. It's turning on us.
I know.
Terminator 2 told us this was going to happen.
See, our audience doesn't know this, so I'm going to give a big reveal behind the scenes. We have stopped recording and have fought with this stupid system for like, what, half an hour?
A long time.
We're having a lot of issues with it, and we never have problems. So, Joe, it might be you, but
it really, maybe there's a magnetism I have, like a literal magnetism that's destroying electronics. My first podcast had terrible video and great audio, and then my second one had terrible audio and great video or something. It's just can't get the Triforce to complete.
No, it's like, hey, if it has wheels or electronics inside of it somewhere, you'll break it.
Yep. Just going to go make butter or something somewhere in Amish country. Yeah. Stay safe.
Oh.
They got it right. Well, I mean, and I love what you guys do. I'm so proud of both of you. And it's so, I hope you're writing a book. I hope you've written books that are going to, and I hope people read them. They need to. It's unbelievable. It's such an uncomfortable conversation to have.
Yeah.
And some schools ask me not to talk about anything like this. And obviously we stay age appropriate, but even in 2020, people really don't want to touch this subject if they can avoid it.
Yeah.
Until it's a problem in their own backyard, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's human nature. Yep. Just
keep going, guys. Keep going.
Thank you, Joe. Same to you,
awesome.
man.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I definitely want to reconnect. So have you maybe when your tour wraps up, have you back on as a guest and just kind of let people know where you're at and what you're doing.
Would love that.
Jimmy, I think we need to have Joe back and have an update. Possibly hear some music, Joe, and get us in tune to that. And, keep us updated on your how it's going with your messages, how things are going with your faith. I think it's incredible that you have had so many setbacks, and yet you put it all on the line with God, and God has come to the rescue each and every time through his people. And that's beautiful. That message alone is just beautiful. And what you're doing by spreading a message of hope to young people is something beyond words. I appreciate that so much. And I know I will continue to have you in my daily prayers. I hope that our listeners will do the same, uphold you with prayers, by listening to your podcast, becoming supporters of yours, both spiritually and financially. We know it takes money to be on the road like you are. We know it takes money to live. We're with you. So thank you so much for spending this time with us. Greatly appreciated it. And thank you to your wife who is at home with your children. Well, that's hard. Speaking from a woman's vantage point, that's tough when you're separated from your husband, when the daddy of your children is not there. It's tough stuff. You have given your all. Thank you so very much for that. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Yeah, definitely. My wife doesn't get nearly enough credit. She just had a stomach flu and 2 babies with a stomach flu back home. So it's like if I would have made a vlog on that, it basically would have been the bad part of The Exorcist. It would have just been a sloppy green mess. So I'm really glad we didn't film that. But yeah, she is. I married the right woman. Like, there's no doubt. She's just and I can't wait. Her voice is powerful and her story is powerful. We both wish she were able to do this with me. So hopefully in the future, when the kids get a little older,
well, we're going to pray to that end. Pray to that end that you will be together during the next year, doing this work that is so necessary. You're so welcome.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, for our listeners, check out Flintface. Go to Flintface Family. That's their YouTube channel. Joe, where can they find your podcast? We're going to link up to all this too in this description.
Yeah,
of this
sure.
podcast.
It's just Take Back Your Voice on Apple, and we actually just posted on a video version of it on our YouTube channel to make it easy as well. So just Flintface, and then our channel is Flintface, and then you just see the podcast and our vlogs. That's all we upload, and our music videos. Like, everything's in playlists and real easy to find.
Awesome.
And I got to give a shout out to your Patreon too. So,
man, well, we have 0 so far, so that's going great. It's patreon.com/Flintface Family, and thank you. You didn't have to do it.
Absolutely. Nope. We were it not for our patrons, this podcast would not be going today. Yes. So we absolutely have to have patrons in order to keep this podcast going. So we absolutely love our patrons, and I want to encourage people, if you don't support this podcast through Patreon and you have moldy money that you just want to get rid of, no, I tease, but no, if you're not a patron of ours, but you listen to the podcast and you want to support Joe and his family, absolutely go over and support them on their Patreon, because it's just, what you're doing, Joe, is so important, and you need to feed your family.
I agree with that part, but yeah, we're all part of the body. I think we're all contributing, and I'm just grateful to be I'm sure I'm a toe or something. I'll find out eventually, but just part of the body, and it's good to be a part. I like it.
Yeah,
thank you, guys.
Thank you, Joe, and to our listeners, we'll catch you next episode.
Thanks again for listening to today's episode of the Speaking Out on Sex Abuse podcast. Thank you to our patrons who make this podcast possible. If you found it helpful, please follow on Spreaker, subscribe on Google Play Music, Apple Podcast, or Stitcher. If you believe in what we do, consider supporting the podcast by becoming a patron, and check out the cool rewards our patrons receive. Share with your friends and tell the world. Join us in speaking out on sex abuse so we can change the tides and prevent abuse.